Hello, welcome to today's class. Today we're starting with chapter two. It's going to be in two sections. It's going to be in two sessions. So this is part one. And in chapter two, we are going to learn how to describe and display data. We've already talked about what data is. We've talked about the type of variables we have. And so we're going to build upon that. Oops. So by the end of this chapter, you should be able to understand what the area principle is. You've already learned how to identify or recognize categorical variables. You should be able to also learn how to display um, or learn how to summarize categorical information about categorical variables. Um, Choose the appropriate display, and also learn how to make tables and graphs. So this is all for part one of this chapter. So like I did say, we are learning how to describe and display um, data. So remember, a bad picture can distort your understanding rather than help it. So what do I mean by that? For example, if we have a graph like this, let's put here, maybe let's do here sex, and let's do here frequency. Then let's do, and let's put maybe male here. Then let's do, then let's put, say, female here. We could also do others. But for this example, let's just stick to male and female. Um, can you make sense of this graph? It's very difficult. Why? Because the width of the graphs are different, right? The width of the graphs are different. If the width were to be the same, we could be able to say that, well, looking at this data, the number of males are more than the females, but the width are different. So it's difficult to understand what this graph is trying to portray. So that is what the area principle is talking about. So what the area principle means is that the area occupied by part of the graph should correspond to the magnitude of the value it represents. So for example, in our previous graphs, the width should be the same. And if the males are more than the females, it means that the bar chart for the bar graph for the male should be the height should be longer than that of the female. So usually good graphs follow these principles. Now let's look at how we are going to um, display or describe categorical variables. So we are going to learn how to summarize and display categorical variable. So let's say in this class, some of the students in this class are freshmen. So the F stands for freshmen, the S stands for sophomores, J stands for junior, R stands for senior, and then O stands for others. So let's say that I take information about the students in this class and I record them this way, right? How am I going to display this information or summarize it so that it's going to make sense? So you don't need to look at this and be counting all this and this. Okay, we have this and that. So we are going to learn how to summarize this data. And so when we have categorical variables, we could use frequency tables and also relative frequency tables to display them or to summarize those data. So let's look at how to construct frequency tables and relative frequency tables. So this is our information here. And then we want to learn how to construct frequency tables. Frequency tables, we are going to show each of the variable and also the count or the group and then the count. So let's start. So we have class, and then we have frequency. So in this class, we have freshmen, we have sophomores, we have junior, senior, and so others. So we want to count how many of the people here are freshmen. So let's count together. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many of them are seniors? Let's count that too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many of them are juniors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many of them are seniors? We have 2, and then others we have 1. So this is an example of a what? A frequency table. So this is a frequency. So you can see the frequency table we do there. So how many groups we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We display that and then the frequency or the count. So that is what a frequency table is. Let's look at how are we going to represent the relative frequency. So same thing. Let me just, no, let me create a new one for that. Okay. So let's create for the relative frequency. So same thing, we have class, and then here we have relative frequency. And so the relative frequency, it displays the proportion rather than the count of each category. So look at the categories we have here. We have 5 categories. So instead of displaying the count, it's going to display the proportion. So how do we display the proportion? What is the total number of what's the total number of data set we have here? So 4 plus 5, that is 9. And then plus 1, 10. 8 plus 2, 20. So the total is what? 20. And so the relative frequency for freshmen is going to be 4 divided by 20, which should give you 0.2. Sophomores, 5 divided by 20, which should give you 0.25. Juniors, 8 divided by 20, which should give us 0.4. And then seniors, 2 divided by 20, 0.1. And then others, 1 over 20, which should give us 0.05. One thing you always have to have in mind is that when you sum all the various rules of the relative frequency, the sum should give you 1 or 100%. So always have in mind. You should also be able to, with this example, you should also be able to identify a frequency table and also a relative frequency table. In this class, we are going to use StatCrunch to do this type of analysis. And so let's head to StatCrunch, and then we are going to use StatCrunch to do this. Yeah, so you open StatCrunch. This is the site. It's also on your learning page. So now, since there's a StatCrunch, now we need to input the data. How do we input the data? So instead of naming here variable 1, let me put class here. Okay. And then what do we have? I'm inputting the data. We have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, others, freshman, soph sophomore, junior, freshman, junior. Okay, we can see from here that at 20. So this is how to input your data in StatCrunch. Now that we've been able to input our data in StatCrunch, how are we going to display the frequency table and the relative frequency table? So you see, I changed this to be class, right? Yours could also be gender depending on the data you have. So once you've been able to input this data, we get to stats. You go to the stats column, and then you come to tables, and then we go to frequency table. We click on that, and then we hit the column. Our column is class, right? And then what do we want to show? We want to show frequency and relative frequency, right? You could also change the order. This is by ascending order. So when you are done with that, then you hit compute. So you see now it's been able to group this for us. So you see we have frequency, and then this is the relative frequency. So this is how to use StatCrunch to be able to display frequency and relative frequency tables. I repeat again, frequency tables displays the counts of the frequency. Relative frequency displays the proportions. And we've already learned how to compute that. So you should take note of that. Now that we've been able to do this, how do we display this information to graphically, right? Because a lot of people also learn by pictures. So with regards to categorical variable, we are going to utilize bar charts and pie chart to display. So it's also very important to know what tool to use to display the type of data you have. So you see, when we have this, we are going to use bar charts to display this data, right? So let's try to do that. So to do that, we go to graph, and then you can see bar plot, and then we click on with data because we have the raw data. So we click on the with data, We click on this one, and then we want to display the frequency. You could also display the relative frequency, whichever way you want it. And then if you want to label them and all that. So we hit compute, and then this is the bar chart. So when you look at this, we can infer from this graph that, well, juniors are more in the class, followed by sophomores, and then freshmen, others. No, followed by, so juniors, followed by sophomores, and then freshmen, other seniors, and then others. So this is how to display bar graphs using StatCrunch. We could also display this information using pie charts. So let's look at how to do that. Same thing, we come to stats, we come to graph, and then you see we have pie charts. We go to with data, we hit our column, and then we want to display this one and also this one, and then we hit compute, and then this also gives a picture. You can also see same thing. You can see juniors are 40%, and then in that order, followed by freshmen, and then you can see. So this is also another way to be able to display categorical variable, and then using StatCrunch. And so when you have this, you should also be able to interpret these pie charts to other people. So it's very easy to see from here their proportions and all that. And so that should be all for this part. I would proceed with part two, what is going to be about doing that for numerical variables or quantitative variables. I'll see you in the next